Fombad. I think I'm the youngest of his old students. He taught me in 2006 and 2008. And so Prof, it's really an honor to be here. And then Professor Kopila also taught me in 2011, so I have two of my lecturers here. That's why I have the advantage that he gave me. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be we're talking to you, myself and my co-author will be talking to you about judicial appointments in Botswana and Nigeria. Because we have such a short time, I'm going to squeeze all our presentation in 7 minutes. So we have 6 bullet points to our paper. You're going to see the contents, and I'll be dealing with the first 4. My colleague will be dealing with the last 2. I will not bore you with the tenets of judicial appointments and the principles of judicial independence. I think that all the scholars here agree on the principles, and Professor Fombad has done a very good job of writing on this, as well as Professor Kopila as well. We saw a recent article by Professor Fombad, 2021, where he draws a comparative analysis of Botswana, South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria to an extent, and we've also borrowed heavily from that book. Let me talk about the legal framework of judicial appointments in Botswana and Nigeria. So Professor Fombad says that the best model is for the Constitution to entrench the process of judicial appointments, and both Botswana and Nigeria borrow that model. The Botswana Constitution and the Nigerian Constitution spell out details of how judges are to be appointed in both countries, and in both countries they have independent bodies. Botswana has a Judicial Service Commission, Nigeria has a National Judicial Council and Judicial Service Commissions that deal with the process of appointment, and in our paper you will see how they deal with the issues of appointment. I will go straight to the next point, which deals with the issues surrounding judicial appointments in Botswana and Nigeria. Why I love our comparative analysis is, quite aside from the fact that it represents the countries that we both come from, they also represent the 2 major government systems that we see in Africa and the rest of the world. Botswana has a unitary government system, Nigeria has a federal government system. And so they both draw the contrast between how judicial appointment works in a unitary system and in a federal system. Botswana unitary systems are normally simpler models of government, and we see that even in the process of appointment in Botswana. Federal governments appear to be a bit complex, and we also see that play out in the judicial appointment structure in Nigeria. And even when it comes to the problems affecting judicial appointments in both countries, the complexities also present themselves in Nigeria, with Botswana not having as much issues as Nigeria does as regards judicial appointments. We've identified 4 issues that affect judicial appointments in Botswana and Nigeria. Of that 4 issues, 2 affect both countries and 2 are very peculiar to Nigeria. The first issue that we have that affects judicial appointments is the composition of the appointing bodies themselves. We find that the composition of these bodies make them prone to executive interference, which is the second issue that we discussed. And Nigeria has I don't like the composition of the Judicial Council in Nigeria, because of the 24 members of the National Judicial Council, we have 7 that are supposed to be independent, but these independent people are appointed by the Chief Justice, who is also a presidential appointee. So essentially what we have in Nigeria is a National Judicial Council that is an executive body that is filled with people that have been appointed by the president, and that affects the interference within the Judicial Council. In 2023, the Chief Justice of Nigeria presided over a meeting of the National Judicial Council where his son was appointed as a judge of a federal high court, and this happens with judicial appointments in Nigeria. Judges appoint their children, their siblings, and we have a lot of nepotism. So that's a major issue that we have in Nigeria. We haven't gone that far in Botswana, but there are issues with the composition of the Judicial Service Commission. We also have political interference in the process of appointments and discipline of judges, particularly in Nigeria. Botswana, we only have rumors, we don't have anything on record. It's been said that there is political interference, but we don't know for a fact. But in Nigeria, it's very interesting because you have the president suspending the Chief Justice without recourse to the National Judicial Council. You have a governor of a state taking out the Chief Judge of a state because he does not like the Chief Judge of the state. And you have these issues, and you wonder where does judicial independence really have, what place does it have in judicial appointments in Nigeria. The third issue that we have a lack of transparency in the process of appointments. Both in Nigeria and Botswana, we don't know what goes into choosing judges. We know that these bodies exist. There's no idea how their processes are conducted because most of it are done in camera, unlike South Africa where there is publication and there are interviews and you see the caliber of the judges that will be appointed. We don't know what happens and what goes behind the scenes. So that's another issue that Botswana and Nigeria has. And then the last issue, which is very peculiar to Nigeria, is that there's a merit versus federal character principle issue that we have. So in Nigerian Constitution, Section 14 says that in any process of appointment in any government office, the person appointed must take into account the federal character, meaning must take into account the diversity of Nigeria in making appointments. So what has happened is that most people now use federal character to trump merit. So when you are supposed to appoint a person that has merit, you discard them because you are relying on federal character. So that is one of the major issues that we have in judicial appointments in Nigeria. Now, with all of this said, I do have to commend the Nigerian National Judicial Council because unlike Botswana, what the National Judicial Council in Nigeria has done is to discipline judges. There have been instances where judges have taken bribes. There have been instances where judges have issued orders without foundation. The National Judicial Council has made recommendations for the removal of those judges, and in certain cases they've also made recommendations that those judges should not be promoted for a certain number of times. So I like that. I like that the National Judicial Council, despite its failings, is taking steps to ensure that judges are actually staying on track. And I think that Botswana can take a leaf from this because we've had instances in Botswana where the Court of Appeal has made statements and concerns about the quality of judgment, about the conduct of judges, and all of that is said. Nothing is done by the Judicial Service Commission. So I think that Botswana could borrow a leaf from the National Judicial Council in Nigeria to be proactive in ensuring that the quality of judges, even after appointment, is maintained because that is also key to the independence of the judiciary after judicial appointments. And so that's where